Good morning, and welcome to the PIOJ Dialogue Exchange, or pre-show for the Dialogue for Development, which begins at 10 a.m. Today's discussion is guided by the theme, Harnessing the Shift, Reimagining a Sustainable Future. I am Trishana Berger-Riley.
And I am Ashley Codner.
Thank you for joining us.
This year's lecture will be delivered by internationally renowned global populations dynamics specialist, Dr. Jose Miguel Guzman. He'll provide evidence-based insights into policy shifts for the labor market and building economic resilience to climate shocks.
Ashley, before we transition to the distinguished lecture, we will be hearing from industry experts across the social, economic, and environmental sectors. The conversation promises to be insightful. We also want to hear from you, our online viewers. Throughout today's discussion, you will be provided with opportunities to engage with us in the comments. Please stay tuned. Please turn your attention to our next video, which focuses on human capital development.
Make sure that we're catering to the needs of the entire population.
And Ashley, you mentioned implications. I'm particularly looking forward to a discussion that brings us hope in terms of what are the opportunities in these challenges that we're facing as a nation.
Because every crisis brings forth an opportunity. And I'm sure Jamaica, we know how to pivot.
That's right.
So I'm not worried. We'll figure it out.
We definitely will figure it out. As a people, it is often said, Ashley, as Jamaicans, we little, but we talawa. And I believe a core part of that is our resilience.
That is so true. We are resilient people. I think this horrible hurricane that we were impacted by, our spirit was not broken.
No, absolutely not.
We're rebuilding. You know, one day at a time. It gets better. So we are a resilient set of people, and I am confident with the excellent expertise that we have across government and the private sector, and also civil society, that we can shape this sustainable future that caters to the needs of everyone.
That's right. And you mentioned a sustainable future that caters to the needs of everyone. We all have a role to play in the Jamaica we want to see.
Yes.
And so I implore us, as we tune into this year's Dialogue for Development, reflect, what are things that you can do, what are things that I can do to help build Jamaica to the Jamaica we want to see.
And we want to hear from you, so please, we encourage you, drop a comment in the comment section and give us some food for thought. What's your perspective on today's discussion? What would you like to see in a sustainable future for Jamaica?
Human Development Index. The Human Development Index, HDI, measures a country's key areas of human development such as long and healthy life, education, and decent standard of living. These are measured using data on life expectancy at birth, mean years of schooling, expected years of schooling, and gross national income, GNI, per capita. Evaluating a country's potential for individual human development offers an additional development metric beyond the standard measure of economic growth, GDP, which we discussed in our previous video. The higher the HDI, the better. A higher HDI means a better standard of living, with improved healthcare, education, and income opportunities. In the 2023-2024 HDI report by the UNDP, Switzerland tops the international list with an HDI of 0.967 out of 1, while Somalia is at the bottom with 0.380. Jamaica ranks 115th with 0.706, and St. Kitts and Nevis leads the Caribbean with 0.838. For more on the HDI or any growth-related matter, please contact the Growth Inducement Program.
Know that we have been seeing where nurses are leaving, teachers are leaving, and other highly skilled persons. We are seeing where people are living longer, and we are seeing where people are getting older. So Jamaica now is what is considered an aging population. So an aging population means we have fewer young people, less children, a relatively large working age population, but a large elderly population. So what does this mean for us? It means, therefore, that there is going to be more demand on social protection system or healthcare system. There may be less demand on our education system. It really does have some serious implications for us economically, socially, and of course environmentally. So we have to take into consideration these trends and what it does therefore means for our country going forward.
Wow, Mareeca, you mentioned declining fertility rates as one of the factors shaping our current demographic realities. Tell us, what are the implications of declining fertility rates for schools and childcare services?
Right, so when we speak about declining fertility or a low fertility rate, what that means is that women are having less children that are required to replace the population. So the desired fertility rate is 2.1, but Jamaica is at 1.9. So what this means is that there is inevitably going to be less children entering schools and less children entering early childhood institutions, and there may be less need for these services, which of course will lead to lower enrollment rates and even school consolidation in some areas, particularly the rural areas. Notwithstanding these challenges, however, there are opportunities that we can harness from this phenomena. So with smaller cohorts, instead of focusing on having access or giving access throughout, we still need access, but let us look at whether or not we can improve the quality, the standard of education that we are offering to our children or young persons. We can focus significantly on strengthening the teacher support that we provide in schools. We can perhaps focus on supporting parents, parental support, increasing parental support for our parents. We can look particularly at the services that are already in place and see how best we can strengthen those that already exist within the education system. So when we speak to declining fertility, yes, we recognize it is a challenge, but we are not just looking at the challenge. What we want to do is see how we can harness these opportunities to improve the systems that we already have in place.
Well, Mareeca, one of the things you highlighted in your response is that this presents an opportunity for us to improve the quality of services offered in our education and childcare systems. I particularly love that we are now able, through this challenge, one opportunity presented is investing more per child.
Right, exactly.
And I believe this will certainly have an impact in creating a labor force that is stronger. So it has an opportunity to strengthen our labor force, equipping our children to meet the needs of a dynamic environment and workforce.
Right. So when they get to when you are part of the working age population, now you see where it will redound to economic benefits, because we would have already strengthened our people from the early childhood level, so that now leaps and creeps into how we see our economic development through the working age population.
Excellent, Mareeca. Thank you so much for your response. My final question: Jamaica has a significant working age population. Are we fully benefiting from this demographic opportunity?
So that is the million-dollar question, because as I said, we have a strong working age population. That means people within the age cohort that are supposed to be supporting economic development, we have a large mass of that people. So Jamaica does have a significant working age population, which presents what we call the potential for harnessing the economic activity. We call this the demographic dividend. So this is where you have a particular group of individuals that through productive engagement or through productive employment can accelerate economic growth, right? So that population must be productively employed or productively engaged. However, I think that we are not fully maximizing on that dividend. And we see where, while many Jamaicans are of working age, challenges such as youth unemployment abound. We see challenges particularly in skills mismatching. So those who have particular skills, they are not being utilized in the areas that they should be utilized in. We have a huge informal economy, so informal employment is very large. And as I said before, migration, particularly emigration of our skilled workforce, is another challenge that we have. So a large working age population only translates into economic growth if people have access to entrepreneurship, if they have access to economic development, relevant training, entrepreneurship activities, and if there is a supportive business environment. So to truly benefit, Jamaica must continue investing in our education from the early childhood level and up to the tertiary level, we must continue to look particularly at our skills development and our skills training institutions, to look particularly at what they offer. Are they offering fit for purpose, and are they offering things that are relevant to the context today? We are looking particularly at the need for technological advancements. Are we at that place where we are supporting these new skills, these new access to technology? Are we creating pathways for entrepreneurial development, especially for our young persons? So we have to look particularly at what exists to determine what we need to improve. What are the gaps that need to be filled so that we can harness the opportunities that this demographic dividend presents, because it is a window of opportunity. Yes. And if we do not harness this opportunity within a particular time, we are going to lose this. So investments must be strategic. The policies that are in place must be relevant and contextual, and as a government and as private sector and as civil society organizations, we have to work together to ensure that this dividend is harnessed, the opportunities are harnessed, yes, so that we can see economic and social development.
Mareeca, your responses have left me hopeful. I understand the challenges that we face, especially in terms of the shifting demographics. However, you have highlighted that there are opportunities to be harnessed, right, even within the context, right, of this shift.
Right, and we are doing it as a country.
Yes.
We are currently looking particularly at some of these issues. We have a policy framework, which is the National National Population and Sustainable Development Policy, which presents that framework. We have Vision 2030. Right. So we are doing these things. We just need to look strategically and to be more focused and to work together as a whole of government to see what we want to see, which right, is a Jamaica that is a place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business.
That's correct. Ladies and gentlemen, our first interview with Mrs. Mareeca Brown-Bailey, Director of the Population and Health Unit at the PIOJ. I'm sure you have been challenged. Your perspective has shifted. Can you tell us in the comments what you have learned and what you would like to see for a Jamaica who achieves our Vision 2030 and beyond? Please stay tuned. Up next is our Did You Know feature, which will be done by my co-host, Ashley.
So now we shift gears to our Did You Know feature. Now, Jamaica has done a lot of research in the area of climate change. And as you all would have known from what happened last year, the impacts of climate change threaten to cost the country millions of dollars each year. I think the impact from Melissa this year was over 40% of our GDP from 2024. Wow. That's quite significant.
It is.
And major growth sectors like agriculture and tourism, they're constantly being impacted by intense periods of rainfall, excessive heat, droughts, and of course, the extreme events, hurricanes,
right,
which cause major disruptions across the board. But did you know Jamaica has climate change projections, downscaled climate change projections for the island? Now, these reports are called the State of the Jamaican Climate, and we have 3 editions. They are publicly available at the PIOJ's website, www.pioj.gov.jm. And these reports were jointly prepared by the PIOJ and the UA Climate Studies Group at Mona campus. And they were facilitated through the PPCR project, the Pilot Program for Climate Finance, the Pilot Program for Climate Resilience, but more specifically, the Improving Climate Data and Information Management Project. And these reports, they explore the potential impacts on key sectors and recommendations on how best to address them. So we looked at sectors like agriculture, water, tourism, health, human and coastal settlement, and we dove into how will these sectors be impacted. It's not to say that other sectors are not important, but these were identified as priority sectors. We spoke about the sectors that drove growth, and even human settlement. I believe it's over 75% of the population that is located along the coast. We have critical infrastructure that's along the coastline. Right. So that was something that we thought was very important to explore.
It is, Ashley.
And these reports, it serves as a first point of a reference for observed and future trends in temperature, rainfall, sea level rise, solar radiation, and of course storms. And it's important to have this for the perspective of a climate resilient economy. Right. We need to know where to build, how to build. So it's very important to inform this decision making at the national level, at the local level, and also at the community level. So industries like agriculture, or farmers will know what crops to plant, where to plant them, when to plant them, because we are observing shifts. And don't worry, when you visit the PIOJ's website, you will see a large technical report. But there's also a summary report that breaks it down in simple language. So don't be deterred. Have a look and see the information that is out there to inform your decisions as we go forward. But Trish, I'm curious. So for me, I am very intrigued about sea level rise because, as I mentioned earlier, we have so much of our critical infrastructure along the coastline. So in my role at the PIOJ, I'm thinking, okay, I need to be cognizant of what the sea is doing.
Yes.
If we make a recommendation to the government, will this recommendation be there 10 years later? But I'm curious, is there a particular parameter that stands out for you, whether it be temperature, heat, rainfall?
It would be the heat, Ashley. A large cohort of our population works outside. And so they're exposed to these
heat stress.
Heat stress.
Right. Okay. No, that's a good one. So we're going to shift gears again. And we want to have some of your perspectives. It's the trade-off. That's what we've labeled it. And the trade-off, are you seeing my question on screen? But whilst we're loading it, we're going to explore, we want to hear from the audience.
Definitely.
If they were at the Planning Institute of Jamaica, if they were in Parliament, what would they do with this option?
This is an opportunity to let us know what you think. We want to hear from you. And as the question loads on screen, please tell us which option you would choose to invest in.
I believe we have $10 billion.
$10 billion.
$10 billion. What would, and the options included coastal infrastructure protection, youth skills
development,
and development,
elderly security initiative.
Right.
The question is there now?
The question is there now. But Trishan, if you had to pick one, which one would you pick?
Ashley, that's a little bit of a struggle for me because I believe in development, youth development and skills training. However, I believe for that $10 billion investment for now, I would choose elderly security initiative. I believe
Okay.
I believe our elderly security initiatives can be strengthened.
Okay.
This is an opportunity for us to provide greater levels of support in terms of health care, pension, financial security for our elderly. So that would be my choice, actually.
That's an excellent point. Now, these options, it's really hard to
It's
choose. They've asked us
hard.
to prioritize one. Now, I'm an environmentalist by trade,
Yes.
and I am leaning towards the coastal defense. And I'm thinking I would love to see a blend. So, a blend of green infrastructure like mangroves, seagrass beds, because of course those reduce the impact of the storm surge that we'll get from hurricanes. And if you have a healthy mangrove ecosystem, it provides a multitude of co-benefits. So not only shoreline protection, but it supports our fishers because the mangrove ecosystem creates a habitat for fish, and I do love a steamed fish with bame, I must say. But also to incorporate, there will be instances where we will have to incorporate great infrastructure. So great infrastructure, you're looking at revetments. And I have seen instances where they do a blend. So we have both of them, and they're working in conjunction with each other to just bolster our coastlines. And my hope is that should we be hit by another hurricane of this nature, that the destruction is not as bad because we have invested heavily in preserving our coastline and bolstering it to make sure that communities, livelihoods, critical infrastructure, they're
Yes.
protected. We don't want to have a hurricane with a really high storm surge cutting off the roads, because then how do we help those who are in need? How do we
Right.
connect with friends and family? So I'm leaning more towards the coastal defense system, but I do hear what you're saying about the intervention for the elderly, because we are having
An aging
we're having
population.
an aging population, and their needs are going to expand.
Yes.
And we need to make sure that these social provisions and also financial provisions are in place, so
yes.
that we're leaving no one behind.
Absolutely. That's the Jamaica we want to see, Ashley. And many of our elderly servants, or many of our elderly persons would have served so much and given
Right.
so much to
Right.
building Jamaica to where it is now. And I really would not want to see them struggling to make ends meet
Right.
when they need
right.
us most.
Right. So I think, boy, Trish, it's hard. The budget. We're joined by Monique Lewis, Urban and Regional Planner, and we want to talk a bit more about how Jamaica should be undertaking its development. Welcome, Monique. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Ashley. Good morning.
Monique, I've been hearing this term, universal design. Now, you are an expert in the field, but break it down for us. What is this universal design that we keep hearing people speaking about?
Well, universal design is a concept that's used across multiple sectors. In the urban planning context, however, a universal design is a design technique that has key principles that promotes and facilitates functionality and accessibility for all. So inclusivity is a key aspect of universal designs.
I like that. So we're thinking of everyone across the age spectrum, making
Everyone.
sure that everyone has access, no one being left behind. I like that.
A good example of a universally designed infrastructure is one that caters and allows accessibility regardless of age or abilities.
Okay, okay, I like that, I like that. But Monique, maybe just to expound a bit more. So how does universal design strengthen infrastructure resilience and not just accessibility?
Right. So resilience is important, and for urban designs and urban spaces, when it is universally designed, that ensures the structure functions under stress.
Okay.
So by stress, I mean, for example, during emergencies or disasters, we know evacuation operations are important. They're life-saving. So when an infrastructure has universal design elements, that would include features with multiple access points.
Okay.
So not only stairs, but there are ramps, there are adjustable lifts, there are step-free access points. So that reduces the bottlenecks that may occur during evacuation operations. An additional feature that can be mentioned is tactile surfaces or multiple communication modes, whether that's emergency alerts using visual alerts or audible alerts. That would reduce dependency for those who have those needs, and it reduces injuries. So for the resilience aspect, infrastructure that's universally designed would inherently be more resilient because it functions for all, for everyone.
I like that. So Monique, you have me thinking this is important for longevity and getting your best return on investment, because
Yes.
it sounds that if we build with universal design in mind, we don't have to retrofit down the line.
Exactly.
It's
Precisely.
catering for all, and I really loved what you mentioned about the tactile element of this design. So we are catering for persons who may be visually impaired. We're
Yes.
catering for persons who may be hearing impaired. So it's really an inclusive, sustained design. Those principles are integrated. I love that.
Precisely.
I love that.
And given that we are at this lecture that's about aging, it's important to take away that aging is a process. So even if you aren't visually impaired,
Right.
we know that as we get older, we do have challenges with our vision. Our vision may become blurred, or hearing may also be challenged. So it's to be considerate of all the needs as the entire life cycle goes on.
I like that. Looking at from womb to tomb. so to
Precisely.
speak. Okay. And so Monique, let's shift gears a little bit. Today's theme for our lecture is harnessing the shift, reimagining a sustainable future. From the lens of an urban planner, what is one of the biggest shifts that governments have to take right now?
That's an interesting question. And from my context, I would say one of the biggest shifts government could take right now is to integrate more aging consideration in our development planning and policy frameworks.
Okay.
So we know the demographic data is key, and we know how the population is changing, but we could be more precise in the recommendations that we design to ensure our programs and our initiatives benefit those age groups as we get further along in life.
Okay, I like that. So it's not just, I think what I'm hearing from what you're saying as well, it's not just looking at the elderly population.
No.
It's looking at from infancy, teenage, young adults, working life, and now transitioning into a later phase of life, making sure that we're incorporating all of that into how we design our cities, how we design our policies?
Everything.
Okay.
Because aging is a process.
It is.
So you're
It is.
going to need different services, different facilities as you age. And it shouldn't be an afterthought or an adaptation or retrofit. It should be considered at the design and planning stage. And I think that would be a good shift for us.
And I know we were having a discussion off air earlier, and you mentioned a phrase to me, and I loved it. It's design for the elderly is design for everyone, truly inclusive. And I think that's something that has stuck with me. Now, Monique, I'm going to shift gears again.
A lot of shifting.
A lot of shifting gears. So last year, we were impacted by Hurricane Melissa, a catastrophic Category 5 hurricane. And the matter of shelters came up in public discourse. From an urban planning perspective, and from your observation and your research, what does a resilient shelter look like, given Jamaica's context or climate vulnerabilities, the fact that we are in a hurricane zone? What does a resilient shelter look like?
Okay, that's a great question, because there are structures that we know are designed for climate resiliency. But a resilient shelter is a structure that's designed not only to withstand but recover from disasters quickly. And being a shelter means that it not only looks at structural safety, but it should now be designed with dignified spaces for the users. It should ensure that it has medical storage. It should have the capacity for energy or power backup, as well as it should incorporate accessible restrooms. So all those needs that would be required during a disaster or during a storm, that shelter should have that capacity, not only to withstand the elements, but to serve the elderly, children, the disabled, women, men, everyone. So that's a resilient shelter.
So we're catering to the social needs. And I love that point that you made about power, because it will go down.
It has to. It's a safety requirement. And it's important as well to know for resilient shelters that if it is not designed for the elderly or children or persons with disability, then it fails at the moment when it's most needed.
Are there any regional best practices that we could draw on?
Yes, yes. As a Caribbean nation, there are a lot of neighbors that we could look to that face the similar climate vulnerabilities each year during the hurricane season. And I think it's very timely that Bahamas last year opened their climate resilient hurricane shelter.
Wow.
It has the capacity to withstand Category 5 level winds and to accommodate over 800 persons. It was built with universal design, so it includes disability inclusive features. It has a industrial kitchen. It has medical spaces, dedicated medical storage spaces, and it's multi-purpose. So I think what Bahamas has achieved last year could be used as a model for Jamaica to look at in building dedicated, resilient shelters.
Thank you so much, Monique. You shared so many insightful insights from the perspective of an urban planner, and we look forward to the main lecture where I'm sure we will dive into this a bit further. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. So, we have another Did You Know? Did you know that Jamaica is embarking on developing a national adaptation plan? We call it NAP for short. So the PIOJ is leading the development of Jamaica's NAP. We've gotten funding from the Green Climate Fund, and the PIOJ is implementing the Towards a Comprehensive National Adaptation Planning Process in Jamaica project, JNAP for short.
Yes.
And this project is geared towards strengthening Jamaica's adaptation planning and implementation framework. And it will focus on some key areas. So of course, adaptation planning governance, institutional strengthening. We're also thinking of the design of adaptation solutions, engaging the private sector, and of course, increasing access to adaptation financing because it is expensive. We will need those resources. And this has been so far an inclusive process. So we've had consultations with private sector, we've had consultation with the public sector, we've also had consultation with civil society to get their insights. What would they like to see in this national adaptation plan? But audience, I'm curious, and we'll look out for your comments in the chat. What would you like to see in a national adaptation plan? Trishano, if you held the pen, what would you write in this plan?
Wow. I really loved the discussion you had with Monique. So a part of my plan would be infrastructure that is able to withstand, so sustainable infrastructure that is able to withstand in high climate risks.
Right, right. So infrastructure that can withstand climate shocks.
Right.
Because of
yes.
course we are in an area where we're being impacted by hurricanes, and in our State of the Jamaican report, they have indicated that the likelihood of more intense storms forming in the basin is high. So we do need to build with that in mind.
Absolutely.
Can our
Ashley.
buildings withstand this? Of course, Jamaica is a small island developing state. Hurricanes have become a part of normal.
Yes,
How do we adapt to this? I think for me, when I think about adaptation planning, again, environmentalist by heart.
That's your heartbeat, Ashley.
I would love to see the integration of more green infrastructure. So we have a plethora of options. Green cities with city forest. We have urban forest. Building our coastline. I would love to see the day when Jamaica is surrounded again by mangroves, because of course for development we had to do some modification.
Yes.
But I'd love to see the involvement of more natural solutions, because I think it helps with our well-being. I know the Minister of Health and Wellness has spoken extensively about how green spaces impact our mental health. And of course, you had mentioned heat stress earlier.
Yes.
If we have more trees, it brings down that ambient temperature so that you can walk on the road to Emancipation Park just around the bend, enjoy a stroll, and you don't feel as though you're burning up.
Right.
So
there's
that's
just a difference in green spaces.
It is.
Feel more relaxed. It's just a beautiful feeling. And as you said, it has very good implications for our health and wellness.
Yes, yes, yes. And of course, we have to include everyone. So we want to have it being truly inclusive. But now we're going to shift gears again to a question that you see on screen that looks at ripple effects. Now, of course, in 2024, we had one of the most impactful droughts, and this impacted several sectors.
Agriculture,
tourism, us.
It affected us.
It affected us. And we're curious to know, how did it affect you? I know for me, I do like a shower in the morning. But when they have to preserve the water resources that we do have water lockup, so you have to plan around that.
Yes.
So I like a shower twice a day. I may have to reduce that to one. But there are health implications. If we don't have sustained running water, then schools can't open because we don't want the children to get sick. It has implications for our hospitals.
Can you imagine a hospital
water.
running without running water?
Oh, that sounds like a disaster in the making.
It is.
So those are the kind of things that I have observed and I've experienced for myself.
But Ashley, even the simple tasks.
Right.
Cooking.
Cooking.
It becomes a challenge.
It does. It does.
Sanitation.
And we don't want to put additional burdens on our health infrastructure because, of course, if we're having issues with sanitation, then the likelihood of illness and disease,
Those increase.
And drought is something that we need to pay keen attention to.
Absolutely, Ashley. I totally agree with you.
So we're shifting gears again. I believe we will have another video coming on screen. No. Okay.
So I believe we've come to the end of our discussion, Ashley.
Right, we have, and it has been such a rich discussion.
It has been.
We've heard from our population experts. We've heard from our development experts. We've heard about all of the climate implications.
Yes.
And we have to take this into account. How will this design our future going forward?
We've heard about best practices,
Yes, we
regional
have.
best practices, which gives Jamaica an opportunity
It does.
to do greater research and create policies that would invest in having that, harnessing that shift to a resilient Jamaica.
Okay. So we're going to shift gears to the main lecture, I believe, and I'm going to, Trishan, are you going to close us out, or would you like me to do the honors?
Can we both close out?
I think
it was
we can.
an absolute pleasure hosting the pre-live show. We will now transition to the distinguished lecture, which will be facilitated by Dr. Jose Miguel Guzman.
Thank you for joining us. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good morning, everyone. I invite you to stand with me for the national anthem of Jamaica. Please be seated. Good morning again, everyone. My name is Rochelle White, and it is my distinct honor to moderate the 2026 staging of the Dialogue for Development lecture series. Dr. Jose Miguel Guzman, today's distinguished lecturer, Dr. Wayne Henry, Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica. We anticipate that later on we will be joined by permanent secretaries from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development. We will also be joined by Mr. Kishan Kode from the United Nations Development Program, as well as other development partners from the European Union, from UNICEF as well. We also anticipate that we will be joined by representatives from the OAS, other heads of agencies who are present with us this morning, heads of academia, members of the board of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, deputy director generals of the PIOJ and other principal directors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow colleagues from the Planning Institute of Jamaica, good morning. The Dialogue for Development was first convened in 2001, around a landmark moment in Jamaica's policy landscape, the publication of the country's first Human Development Report. That initial forum, delivered by the then Director General Dr. Wesley Hughes, under the title Jamaica from Creative Adaptation to Sustainable Transformation, set the tone for a thoughtful examination and forward movement. From that beginning, the dialogue evolved into a national space for engagement, traveling across parishes, and I've had the pleasure of participating in some of those dialogues, convening discussions in Kingston, Montego Bay, Mandeville, Port Antonio, Savannah Lamar, and beyond, drawing together policymakers, private sector leaders, academia, civil society, and our development partners. The themes have traced Jamaica's development journey in real time, exploring issues such as education and gender performance, rural development and entrepreneurship, tax reform and financial markets, climate resilience, economic growth in challenging environments, and the advancement of Vision 2030 Jamaica, or National Development Plan, and the Sustainable Development Goals. In 2008, the series became a vehicle for island-wide consultations on Vision 2030 Jamaica National Development Plan. In 2009, we hosted Professor Paul Romer in discussion on growth in the post-commodity era. We've also focused, as I indicated before, on climate resilience, an issue that we can say with the passage of Hurricane Melissa has only intensified in relevance. And in 2019, we began looking at population aging. However, that series had to be paused because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Each staging has captured a particular moment in our national context, reflecting the issues most pressing at the time. And today, we will add another chapter. To formally welcome you and set the context for this year's dialogue, I now invite the Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, Dr. Wayne Henry, to deliver his welcome and opening remarks.
Mrs. Rochelle White, today's moderator, Dr. Jose Miguel Guzman, today's distinguished lecturer. We anticipate the financial secretary and permanent secretaries in various ministries to join us, the resident representative of the UNDP, as well as the UNICEF, heads of cooperation of the European Union, I see our colleagues from the EU, and of course, Development Canada, resident representatives of OAS, and of course, Development Canada, heads of agencies, heads of academia, members of the board of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, deputy directors general of the PIOJ, Dr. Wesley Hughes, former head of the PIOJ. I'm not seeing Dr. Hughes, but we know he should be joining us also. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Somehow we say it twice, right? Good morning. And so it's such a pleasure to welcome you this morning. Among other things, we're going to be discussing Jamaica's development or demographic transition, and I think we are somehow all a part of that. And they tell us that as you age, three things begin to happen. Right? One, they say, you begin to forget things. I forget 2 and 3, but that's what they say, right? But certainly it's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning to the Planning Institute of Jamaica's Dialogue for Development Lecture 2026. Since its establishment in 2001, the Dialogue for Development has served as an important national platform for informed and forward-looking discussion on issues central to Jamaica's development agenda. It reflects the Institute's enduring commitment to grounding policy in evidence, global insight, and inclusive engagement. The dialogue was never intended to be ceremonial. It was designed as a space for disciplined thinking where Jamaica pauses to interrogate the forces shaping our future. Today's lecture takes place at a time when structural shifts are accelerating. Demographic transition is altering the composition of our labor force and the demands of our social systems. Climate vulnerability is imposing tangible fiscal and developmental costs. And technological change is redefining productivity, competitiveness, and inclusion. At the same time, global economic uncertainty continues to test small open economies such as ours. These are not isolated developments. They are interlocking dynamics that require policy coherence, strategic foresight, and institutional discipline if we are to mount an effective national response. Under Vision 2030 Jamaica National Development Plan, we have committed to building a prosperous, inclusive, secure, and sustainable society. That vision speaks not only to economic growth, but to social equity, environmental stewardship, strong institutions, and an improved quality of life for all Jamaicans. Realizing this ambition demands more than program-level adjustments. It requires alignment across the economic, social, and environmental pillars of development, and it calls for deliberate investment decisions and social protection systems that are responsive yet fiscally responsible. It requires human capital strategies that anticipate future demand rather than merely reacting to present pressures. This year's theme, Harnessing the Shift, Reimagining a Sustainable Future, is therefore both timely and necessary. As we advance the goals of Vision 2030 Jamaica, we must anticipate these shifts, assess their implications, and position ourselves strategically. Sustainable development requires not only resilience, but also foresight. Fora such as this provide an opportunity to reflect, interrogate, and refine our approaches. We are therefore very pleased to welcome Dr. Jose Miguel Guzman to Jamaica to deliver this year's lecture and to share his insights, drawing on his global expertise in population and development dynamics. The analytical work and policy leadership that have shaped international discourse on demographic change, social investment, and sustainable development are directly relevant to the decisions that small island developing states, such as Jamaica, must now confront. May today's discussion sharpen our thinking, strengthen our resolve, and help to shape the policy choices that will define Jamaica's future. Again, welcome, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Always a challenge speaking after Dr. Henry because of the significant adjustment that has to be made. Thank you, sir, for those insightful remarks. Members of the audience, I invite you to join in viewing a brief video presentation.
Like the tides that shape our shores, Jamaica's population is shifting, growing older, growing slower, and growing smaller as many leave our island for opportunities abroad. These changes aren't unique to us, and Jamaica has a plan. Bold actions in the National Population and Sustainable Development Policy and Program of Action. The national goal is a balanced population growth that supports the well-being of all Jamaicans, children and youth, working-age persons and older persons, adequate services for persons with disabilities and other vulnerable groups. A Jamaica where no one is left behind. We're seeing progress. The Economic and Social Survey Jamaica shows that life expectancy in the late 1960s and 1970s was about 65 years. In 2011, it was 75 years. About 16% of the population now has tertiary education. In 1962, it was less than 1%. The 2022 Jamaica Multiple Indicator Cluster Survey notes that there is almost universal access to improved drinking water in Jamaican households. But challenges remain. Our birth rate has dropped below replacement of the population. Too many skilled Jamaicans are leaving, and about 50% of households in rural areas do not have access to improved drinking water in the home. Jamaicans agree that we need actions to enable persons at every life stage. Quality health care, education and training, and attractive jobs. Incentives need to be developed to attract and retain highly skilled professionals in Jamaica. This is critical for major service sectors such as health, finance, energy, information technology, agriculture, infrastructure, and education. We must pursue ongoing policy changes to facilitate protection and income security for vulnerable groups, such as persons with disabilities and the elderly. This is to include the portability of pensions and other social and financial benefits. The solutions may not always be easy to achieve, but the vision is clear. We want a cohesive Jamaican society that is fresh, inclusive, and thriving for generations to come.
It now gives me great pleasure to introduce our featured lecturer for this year's Dialogue for Development, Dr. Jose Miguel Guzman. Dr. Guzman is a globally respected leader in the field of population and development, with decades of experience in research, data systems, and policy formulation across Latin America, Africa, and Asia. His work has spanned critical issues, including demographic dynamics, urbanization, fertility decline, aging, population and climate change, labor force projections, and population policy. He has held senior roles with the United Nations Population Fund and the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, and has contributed extensively to the USAID-supported Demographic and Health Surveys program. A published scholar, Dr. Guzman authored a chapter on population policies in Latin America and the Caribbean in the 2022 International Handbook of Population Policies. His contributions have been recognized internationally, including his designation as a laureate of the International Union for the Scientific Study of Population. Dr. Guzman is currently the president and founder of No Brainer Data, where he advises governments, including small island states, on demographic resilience strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Jose Miguel Guzman.
Good morning, distinguished audience, distinguished Dr. Henry for his amazing reception, for inviting me to come here to be with you. Distinguished national authorities, distinguished representatives of international organizations, including UN, distinguished audience, but in particularly, I have a bias as a demographer, and I want to welcome the participation, also the new generation of demographers being here, because next time they will be here. So thank you for coming, for being with me. It's really an honor to be here. It's a pleasure to be here. Jamaica is a great country, and I love to be here. I want to start with a simple idea. Jamaica is at a crossroads, not metaphorically, literally. Two massive forces are reshaping this country at the same time. And how Jamaica responds in the next 15 years will define the next 50. What we will cover today, we begin where Jamaica has just been, Hurricane Melissa. From there, we move to the two transitions happening simultaneously, climate intensification and demographic transformation. We'll look at what this means for all the Jamaicans, for young Jamaicans, for women, for the economy, and then we will get to the hard question on what needs to actually be done. I wanted to ask you a question about what happened. What was the first service you lost after Melissa? And which one hurt the most? Electricity? What else? Water? There was problem on water? Transportation? Communication? Health services? Income? Well, most of you probably you were in Kingston, so you were some kind of safe. But people living in areas that were affected, probably they'll have to do with this situation. So I wanted to present basically what I want to say in this presentation. The core thesis in this is that Jamaica is facing two simultaneous transitions, climate and demography, and they cannot manage separately. Melissa showed us what happened when systems fail. What we haven't yet fully reckoned with is that population those systems serve is itself transforming. Fewer children, an aging workforce, skilled people living, and a window of opportunity right now to add. So, Hurricane Melissa was some kind of a stress test. 8.8 billion in damage, 41% of the GDP, 1.6 million people affected, 70% without electricity in the first 48 hours, 60% of vegetable crops in St. Elizabeth gone. But the number that matters most is 0. 0 days it took for one failure to cascade into the next. Power failed, water stopped, road closed, clinics couldn't function, workers lost income, family cut nutrition, caregiving networks broke. What Melissa rebuilt was not just a storm, it was a system test. And the most vulnerable, as always, paid the highest price. But Jamaica responded quickly, with institution and with heart. And hold that, because it matters. First, government moved fast. Mortgage moratorium, disaster grants, housing for displaced families, a tourist recovery task force. But what moved me most was the community response. Neighbors reopening roads together, generators shared with strangers, people checking on the elderly before asking anyone asked them to, faith community organizing shelter, and in those shelters, grooming days, because that is the design principle Jamaica should build from. But a deeper truth is that Melissa reveals something deeper than the damage figures. Jamaica doesn't face one crisis. It faced two simultaneous crises, two simultaneous transitions, each making the other harder to manage. Let me show you what that means. The first transition, it's going the opposite side. Sorry, a second. The first transition is a climate reckoning. We know that sea level will be rising. We know that the effect of climate change will have an impact in everything Jamaica can do in all these sectors. Which are the components of these changes? First, 3 dimensions. Sea level rising at 3.3 millimeters per year, with projection up to 82 centimeters by 2100. Temperatures rising, making heat stress, non-communicable disease burden, and outdoor work more dangerous, and 82% of the population concentrated on coastline where tourism, agriculture, and fresh water are all already under pressure. These risks don't add, they multiply. We can see this in this slide with more details. But let me, sorry. Okay, sorry, I don't know. Well, the second transition is the dramatic change in population, size, structure, household composition, because of very low fertility, stagnant mortality, and sustained immigration. What exactly is happening? First, we are living now in a moment very special for Jamaica. We don't know exactly if the population is declining today, it started declining 2 years ago. or will start declining in 2-3 years. We don't have the data in details yet, but we know for sure that we are around that moment. That moment in the history for Jamaica that for the first time there is an acknowledgement that what we have until now, a population that grows, obviously at different rates, that is in the process of changing probably forever. So this is a key moment for the history of the country. But we are not only dealing with a population size decline, because what matters is not only how many people we have, but how old they are, how are they organizing in their family, how they live. And then we know that we have a rapid population aging. Should we say rapid or not? Well, in the case of Jamaica, maybe it's not so rapid as other countries. But yes, we know that we have an aging before, before the other one. Could you move before? Oh, we are having the other one. Okay, sorry. So we know that we have the aging that we mentioned, but also we have a younger population that is decreasing. And finally, we have smaller households. Probably more and more there will be people living alone. And that changed completely the equation of services we provide, how we get to the people, how they live, how they interact with others. And all that matters in any policy that has to do with social, economic, or environmental issues. We can see there in this what's happening in the graph. So it seems that we are at the top of the mountain. Usually, we are celebrating when we arrive to the top of the mountain. This is what people that go to the Everest, they think. But in this case, we know that we are going to a moment of a situation where the population will be less and less. And this has not the same effect for somebody that just has climbed the Everest. So it may challenges. We know, for example, in terms of the population, the young population, the 0 to 14, 40% of reduction. From now to, from 2019 to 2024, we have a population that, we are showing that one, yes. We have the peak population that working age that is now, but also we start soon to decline. Can you show, please, the next one? Okay, so we can see there, this is the population projection for UN, and it shows us what's happening now. You see that the labor force population, which is in blue, it's at a moment also to start declining. But the young population started declining in 2000. It's not something new. We have less kids in the school, less students at the university, and this will continue. The fertility continue declining or stay as it is now, we will have that in such a way that in 2014, just some less than 15 years, yes. So less than 15 years, we will have the same amount of people 65 and over that 0-14. And it's amazing when we look at this graph and we discover that in 1970, there was another group that was similar to the young people. It was the people in the labor force. So we have almost one person, 0-14, for each person working. That was a challenge for countries. Some people say, okay, we were like developing countries. They don't have a problem with aging, so they are better than us. We're like European countries. They have a very high proportion of people, older people. But the challenge that countries, developing countries faced in the 70s was incredible high, because they have to deal with a demand of service education for that population without having the income, the capacity, the institutional capacity developed to deal with that challenge. We are now better prepared. Jamaica is now better prepared. Next one, please. Next. Okay, I want to ask you a question. How many babies do you think Jamaica recorded in 2024? What? You know, when you start looking at serial TV and you start with the last episode, you know what happened? Well, but don't worry. There is a book written by Gabriel Garcia Marquez in which he says at the beginning what will happen at the end. So I'm telling you at the beginning. Now I'm going to change what I was going to say. Today, we have 25,900 in 2024, 42 births. Okay. It's just a number. But put the next one. Press again. Do you know how many we have? She's playing with you. Do you know how many we have in 2019? 35. So we have in 5 years a reduction in Jamaica of 1/3 of the number of births. This is something that we need to look at. If we think that every birth means a pregnancy, just look at that. We are having a 33% less of women going to the hospital for delivery. And that means something. That means a challenge demographically speaking, but also that means something that is that we have the capacity to do much, much better in health services because we have less pressure now, but also that the money that we are not investing in that, we can invest in something that is also relevant for the future. The next one, please. Three forces are driving this transformation, and we need to look at them separately. Before, demographers, we know very well that we talk about fertility, mortality, migration, the component of demographic change. But I want to present it there as the three forces that are driving one of the most important change Jamaica is facing and will be facing in the next decades. Fertility collapse. What happened with fertility? You see the result, fewer children. From 4.5 children per woman in the 70s to 1.9 today, below the replacement level up to 1. And even there are people that are estimating for Jamaica in 2025 about 1.4, 1.5. But please don't use this figure because I'm not sure where this figure comes from. But it's very possible that now Jamaica has a fertility around 1.5. This is highly possible. 1.5 means that we are, if it's to 1, the level of replacement, that means that we are at least 20%, 25% below the replacement. Every movement to go lower means more effort that we need to do if we want to increase it. The other is sustained immigration. Well, 60% of tertiary educated Jamaicans live abroad. This is a statistic I have. 500 specialists, nurses lost every year. Remittances are real, yes. 3.36 billion 15% of the GDP. But as somebody told me, you cannot remit a nurse back into a clinic. But obviously, the resources coming to Jamaica for remittances, the same coming from other Caribbean countries, are very important. And it's a way to compensate this demographic lack of people. But one thing that I think has not received the attention that it deserves is not fertility, it's mortality. And I would like to ask you, what's happening? Because estimates for United Nations are telling us that the life expectancy has been more or less stable for 3 decades. But we don't know what's happening now because we don't have, at least, I don't know if we have it yet, a life table saying that we have this calculated, the mortality rates, probability of dying, probability of surviving, and then we built a table that tells us what is the life expectancy at 0 or any age. What's happening today with Jamaica? This is a question that we need to be able to answer. Because if this is true, then it's a national crisis. If mortality has been stable for 3 decades, this is one of the most important national crises Jamaica is facing now. Next, so let's see more in details. Now, the next one. Yeah, the following. No, go back, please. For some reason, the line is not there, but we can see what already said. Another important point is that adolescent fertility has been reduced, which is a sign of progress. It's very important. The country has invested a lot in the last 20, 30 years in trying to reduce adolescent fertility, and this is happening. It's not only happening in Jamaica. In Chile, they have had an incredible decline of adolescent fertility. It's going so fast, the decline, that you cannot even imagine how that happened. In Dominican Republic, it's happening also the same. Something is happening that is leading to a change which is very positive. Obviously, it has an effect on fertility, because the later you start, the less kids you have. But independently of the demographic result, the fact is that we have an important sign of progress. Next, please. And those who are here are not living as long as they should, what I was talking to you. Let me show you this graph. And I will give you some seconds for you just to look at this graph and tell me what you see there. This is data from the United Nations Population Division. I just talked to the person in New York that do the calculation, that is responsible for the population projection in the world, and he showed me the graph that they use to estimate this trend in mortality. It's crazy. You don't want to see that if you are not a demographer. You want to see several things, but they do as best as they can to estimate, and this is what they got. So how is possible that so many countries start, even the Republic of Korea started in 1990. At that time, Jamaica was a case study in the Caribbean, was one of the countries with higher life expectancy in 1990. And then we have countries as diverse as Malaysia, Panama, and Bulgaria, Bosnia, that has gains in life expectancy that you say, what is happening? Why Jamaica has been stuck at this value 71, 72? Obviously, we know that probably by gender, the stagnation affects more to men than women, but even, I have seen the data by gender that I'm not showing here that show that they are both basically stagnated. There is a small increase in women, but not too much. So it's not just an issue that affects men. This is something that surprised me because I have not seen this data in that way before. And then, next, the young and skilled continue to live. For some reason, I don't know why the graphs are not appearing in this presentation. Go back, please. But I wanted to show you has been the impact of migration. But the graph just disappeared. But what I can tell you is that the graph that was there, so it helped our imagination to, to move a little bit. Imagine a graph, you have columns, but the columns are all negative. That means the migration rate of Jamaica since the 70s. Always negative, except in COVID. The rate of migration has decreased because, let's say, has increased, meaning that because it's negative, means it's closer to zero. But still, Jamaica has immigration. Next. Next. Oh. Okay. But in the meantime, I can, just a second. So, what happens when all these three things are combined? Fertility below replacement and continue declining. Mortality, stagnation, and immigration. What are the sources of population growth? It's how many people are born, so that creates movement. Second, we avoid that people die when they are young. That means that they stay longer as part of the population. And third, they stay here. Or some people move, another come. So, what happened in Jamaica? The three have negative effect. And this is why I'm waiting for the presentation to present. What I'm going to tell you is that when this situation happened, it's what I called the perfect storm of demographic decline. That means that everything worked together. You can move to the next because I'm not going to go back now because, but yeah, next. Where this was the graph? Next. Okay, now, what we have now is what I call the perfect storm of demographic decline. Low life expectancy, high immigration, very low birth rate. Is that particularly the case of Jamaica, and is any other country in this situation? Well, I have been working recently with North Macedonia, which is a country of the Balkans, and they have something almost similar. Maybe mortality stagnation is not as we see in Jamaica, but they don't have the mortality level that other countries of Europe in that area have. But they have very low fertility, and they have problem of migration. And for them, it's more complicated because now they are negotiating with the European Union, free movement. They enter to the European Union, that means free movement. So young people, they will move to one place to the other. Next. But also, from a positive side, we are in the middle of a once-in-a-generation window of opportunity. Next. This is the dependency ratio for Jamaica from 1970 to 2025, where we are now by data from the United Nations population projection, and we have now here what we expect. So it happened that we are now in the best moment in terms of dependency ratio. But we will see that soon that will increase because we know the number of and proportion of older people will be increasing. And then what does that mean? That means that Jamaica has 15 years or so to act, to use that windows of opportunity. The fact that there will be less women going for pregnancy, for delivery in the hospital, this is part of this. So how Jamaica can benefit from that? I will go there. But these, what we call demographic dividends, are not automatic. We know that the case of East Asian economies that succeed in terms of development, it was because they invest in education and health and productivity. Next. So this is why climate and demography cannot be treated as two separate things. Next. Why it is relevant? Because, as you can see there, demography change reshapes who is exposed, who is fragile, and who can recover from a climate shock. Smaller households increase the demand for services that family used to provide. A tightening workforce requires higher capability per worker. You can no longer grow your way out of problems, and when hurricanes hit an aging society with weakening care networks, they are no longer just a weather event. They are health and care crises. You cannot solve one without solving the other. Next. But that means that we have to consider, and I want to consider here two groups. First, older Jamaican. For older Jamaicans, sustainability means one thing, that the service they depend on do not collapse precisely when they need it the most. Next. When power fails, medicines stop. When roads close, emergency referrals cannot happen. When staff don't show up, capacity drop as demand spikes. When social networks fracture, isolation becomes a life-threatening condition. But all these Jamaicans are not only vulnerable, they are assets. They know which road flood. They know who needs checking on first. They carry the institutional memory of every past crisis. A resilient society engaged them as contributors, not just as beneficiaries. But let's see the other side of the equation. What does that mean for young people? Three things young Jamaica need from a resilient Jamaica. Learning that continues when disaster hits. A genuine pathway from school to skills to work, and the digital and AI capabilities to compete in the economy that's coming. One proposal I put forward is a youth result scorecard, 5 measures tracked annually: learning recovery, school return, job placement, job rotation, gender balance. If you cannot measure it, you can defend the investment. In this case, I have a question for you, another question. Who care or are caring for your parents? And who is caring for your grandparents? I'm talking now, today. Can somebody tell me? Do you have older parents or grandparents? Yes, please.
I care for my mother, but I have no children, so I don't know who.
Okay, and then I think thank you. because this leads us directly to this next one. Who will care for you? Could you answer that too? Yes.
I have no children, so I don't know. I'll care for myself.
Yes. Yes, I think many people can care for themselves, and I think this is also part of the equation. How can we improve the probability that you can care for yourselves until later in life? And this is a question that we will be discussing later. But is there anyone that want also to say what their particular situation may be different?
So for my husband's grandmother, we had to get someone to care for her.
For your?
My husband's grandmother.
Okay.
So we had to get someone to stay with her.
Okay. So you can hire somebody to care for her. Yes, this is a good situation. Because some people, they don't have necessarily the resources, and they have to do themselves. And they have to combine that with having kids, taking care of themselves, etc. So what that means is that what is coming is a society in which we need to think about care as an important component of the society. Next. But then, we are talking about challenges and difficulties, but it's also negative. It's so incredible difficult, the future that we are discussing here, because I don't want you to go from this meeting like depressed. On the contrary, I would like a more energetic. And this is something that is happening now. We think and we know that two economies that demographic change made not just possible, but necessary. One is what we call the purple economy, the economy of care. How we can professionalize care. How we know that unpaid care work is worth 15 or 45% of the GDP. Now that we are able to calculate how relevant is this, is economically very relevant. Women produce 2/3 of it for free. For free. Not for free for the society, but not for free from them. The purple economy means training and employing people in care, creating defined career path, and making care visible in national accounts where it has been always invisible. On the other side, the silver economy, aging can be considered a market opportunity, particularly now that baby boomers, who are supposed to be richer than the previous generation, and I don't know, probably richer than the next generation in terms of resources at the end of their life, it's an opportunity for investment, wellness tourism, age-friendly housing, telehealth, financial products for retirees, older entrepreneurs, longevity not as a burden to be managed, but as a market to be built. But next, none of these work unless the invisible black backbone of Jamaican society, women and the care economy, is finally seen, valued, and supported. Next. 45% of Jamaican homes are female-headed. Those households carry more unpaid care and fewer assets. When recovery comes, it must reach them. Cash repair services without asking them to sacrifice care to survive. And in shelters, lighting, sex-segregated sanitation, secure partitioning. These are not comfort measures. Violence and harassment spike during displacement. Safety for women and girls is infrastructure, not an afterthought. Next. So, delivering all of this requires more than good intentions. It requires an operating system upgrade. Institutions that connect, coordinate, and respond. and data that makes possible to know what is actually happening. Next. So what makes resilience operational? First is this institutional improvement in productivity. And I'm going to call it that way. We need to find a way to make institutions more productive. In an AI era, we have the possibility to make possible, to make visible these synergies that exist in different ministries, the programs, institutions, and save money, time, and get higher impact because we are really working better together. AI allows us to have no excuse for not doing this integration. But it is something that in Jamaica, in all the country, but in Jamaica in particular, it's key. And we need to consider what we know about this factor. I said before that we don't know too much about what happened with mortality and life expectancy. What can be done to make that a priority in such a way that in less than 2 years, we have a new life table to tell us how many years Jamaican men and women are living in the condition now. We need to have more access to the data. I know that has some difficulties with the census, 2022 census, and I understand. I've been working with census in many Latin American countries and also some African countries, and I know the difficulties. And this round of census 2020 was one of the most difficult in Latin America. Jamaica was not the one having problems. But we need to find a way to fix it. And you know what? You can have the best data in the world, but this data does not represent the situation now, or at least in the last 2 years. I can have the life expectancy for 2019. Yeah, but we are in 2026. So I think working with administrative system look better inside those what's happening. Use more geospatial data to map inequalities, to even calculate population. There is a huge project globally, the World Pop, that is dealing with that, how to estimate a small area with situation we have no data. We have the vital statistic also Jamaica is one of the countries with best vital statistic in Latin America and the Caribbean. So let's put that information available and let's use it. And finally, what we do with AI. AI will help a lot in many things. I'm not going to discuss this in detail, but AI is not going to register a birth. A birth registration, what we do is done by people doing the responsible work of registering their birth. And the responsibility of national institutions is make sure that this registration become a data in terms of events that can be used to do what we are trying to do now. Well, next one, the path for adaptation. Let's talk a little bit about adaptation because we talk a lot about what's happening. What can we do on that? We mentioned about, yes, aging, care economy, silver coin. Next one. I think what I'm trying to show here is that we have like some imperative for adaptation. First is understand. We need to upgrade demographic intelligence, interoperable data, geospatial risk targeting, integrated delivery, responsible AI. This is what I just said. But we also need to develop modeling of demographic, economic, and social scenarios. This is not too complicated. We can do it easy, or we can go very complex models. Yes, of course. But we don't need too sophisticated model to know that the participation rate of older people remain now in 2040, how many older people will have in the labor market. We can say that. We can even estimate a range of possibility. This is the kind of thing that we can do. How we plan for services in a society that's changing demographically so fast. And we need in terms of governance, we need one resilience lens, as I said. I'm not going to repeat that. But then we need to invest in people across the life course, extend the demographic window opportunity, how we can do that, how we can boost productivity and labor force participation, women, young people, older workers. We say a lot about that, but how exactly can we do that? Turn aging into a growth. We mentioned about the silver and purple economy. And finally, put human capital of young people at the center. Because we talk a lot about young people, but sometimes we forget young people. Next. So this is what I think in terms of adaptation. If Jamaica aligns adaptation to demographic transition and climate-driven vulnerability, it can strengthen national adaptation and be more a prosperous society. Next. But did we forget mitigation? Yeah, we need to adapt. We know, and we know we have some recommendations, but what about mitigation? What needs to and can be done to face what we call the perfect storm of demographic decline? Next. Vision 2030 already set an ambition for a stable population. Next. The question is, how can that can be done? The National Population Policy, I'm very happy because I received from the hand of Dr. Henry yesterday a copy of this amazing publication. And it says this about what is expected. The PIOJ is clear in terms of what is the goal. Next. The question is, for the demographic perspective, how this can happen. Next. And the first front is about fertility. We need to create the condition for reversing and stopping the fertility decline that is happening in Jamaica. Wow, nice question. Do I have an answer? No. Do anybody has an answer? No. Many countries, research around the world, are working 24/7, trying to understand what happened in fertility and what can be done. I have been working in population policy, demographic resilient policy. I have been recommending things. But I am absolutely sure that that will work. That will work for people. People will be better. Women will be better. Young people will be better. Yes. Is that going to increase fertility? Nobody knows. So we can go there in two directions, the optimist and the pessimist. The pessimist is what I heard many people saying. There is nothing to do. We are going to decline the population. As the pilot, the plane say, sit back and relax. Okay, the other is the optimist view. I like what the pilot does when he's in the plane, but I prefer the other view. And my view is that if something is happening in a society, it's my role as a researcher, as somebody that is interested in understanding why people behave the way they behave. It's just a challenge. And I take that as, that's why I was telling my colleagues, young demographers, before this meeting, is you are living the best time for demography ever. This is the best opportunity to try to understand what really happened. I just received this morning a paper for somebody that wrote a new theory of why that happened. And it's compelling, has some interesting thing. But still, we are missing things. And you know why it's important? Because this is a phenomenon that's happening everywhere. And it's happening everywhere. You cannot say because of gender equity, it's because of housing conditions, it's because of income, it's because of you are in Africa or in Europe. It happens everywhere. There must be something that is common everywhere. And this is where we are looking for. Next. So here are some of the possible lists of actions. And just that, take that as a free shopping list. But I want to mention something in this free shopping list. It's the following. There is something that is happening in researchers' mind, or what they are studying now, is that they are putting increasing emphasis on the psychological process in which women and couples take the decisions, not only the economic context. We discussed a lot about it was gender equity. Let's see the case of Nordic countries. They have higher fertility than other European countries. But suddenly, all Nordic countries' fertility started like going down, and now you talk about Finland, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, and you see that their fertility is even lower in some cases than other European countries. So the equity, gender equity issue is not more an explanation for keeping fertility high. It's an explanation for bringing fertility down. And it's one of the most positive developments in humanity in this past century, the second part of the past century and this century, that we are getting more equality between men and women. And this is a result that is relevant, important, crucial, independently of what happened with fertility. So we don't need to use gender equity to explain fertility, because gender equity is something that is valid by itself. But what I think is that is important is how we do that. And something, is a psychological process, it's how we people build aspirations. Obviously, the economic arena is crucial for determining the space of possibility that the person has. The social and the institutions that play a role, yes, church play a role, yes, the state play a role, the private sector, they play a role, but people are moving kind of independently of this institution in some cases. And then the society, the cultural factor. And you see some people have compared the situation in East European countries with demographers with the situation in other European countries. Fertility is the same level, yes, but in some countries with more traditional values, the fertility is occur earlier. But at the end, the result is the same. So culture, yes, influence, but culture just influences the way things happen, not why they happen. And I think this is where we are now. And I think what happened with fertility is not a demographic issue anymore. Let's go the next one. The second from this, as I mentioned, mortality, and then continue, please, next one. And also we have a lot of shopping, what I call free shopping lists of possible things. But I think you know here the situation and how it's important. I think there are two important issues in Jamaica that are relevant for this. One is, as you know, violence, and I'm happy to learn, but I have talked to people that crime rate has been reducing the last year, so this is an incredible positive development. And this also affects fertility in some way. But also there is something that is extremely relevant that also need to be at the center of this priority of increasing life expectancy, is what the country does with non-communicable disease. Do we know how many diabetic people we have in 2040? We can project that. I don't know if you have done that, but it's something that we can project. And what are the implications of that? Obesity increase. What are the implications of this? You know, you said there, yeah, I will care by myself. My mother, she died 93 years ago, 3 years ago. 93, she was 93, and she was living basically alone. Would I be able to do that? I'm not sure, because she worked harder than me. And then I think this is the issue, how we will be prepared, how a society with such a high incidence of NCDs will be ready to build independence Because if not, that means more independence means less care. Less care means less money to spend by family and by the state. So investing in healthy life is the way to go. Next. Okay, migration, the hot topic. Nobody wants to talk about it, and everybody wants to talk about it. And if you are living in the US and myself now, I don't want to talk about migration in US or out of US. So don't ask me that question, please. But this is something that is really relevant. I knew, I was surprised. I knew that Jamaica is bringing nurses from Ghana. Is that true? How many? Huh? 600? And I think I don't have anything to propose to Jamaica. You are already in the right track. We need to go a little bit further, analyzing what the implications of that. Are there women going to have kids here? Are they going to marry with Jamaican men? They're going to bring their husband or their partner? Are they stay here after 1-2 years? Are they going to try to go to US or to UK because they are now here? From Ghana to UK is a little bit more difficult. Maybe it's Jamaica the way to go to UK. How we devise that? But the most important point is that, the most important point is that you are going in terms of what we do in migration. Yes, people talk a lot about the diaspora. And let me be very honest with you. I have an issue with the diaspora. I am part of the diaspora of my country, but when people think that people will just return, it's not so easy. You go out, you meet family, you study, you live in another society. Some cases better, or you think it's better than the ones that you were living. Yes, you like the beach, to go to the beach and be free to have a beer in any place. Yes, that's true. You cannot do that possibly in Oslo, but migration is something that we need to look from a broader perspective. But it's very important that we are able to do next, because I'm proposing something here that has to do with this. The second of understanding, develop projection of future labor needs by sector. Because I'm sure you have done some of this research. I have seen that in many countries, but I have not seen too many cases in which they calculate that by sex and age. We calculate the number of people we need. But do we know we want more women, men, which age? And if we know that, we need to make explicit that, because it's the way we will see how much this migration will contribute to other things. So I think there is also the shopping list here. The next, please, because I think I'm still. As you can see here, the way and the progress for Jamaica in successfully navigating this policy road through both adaptation and mitigation in the next 2 or 3 decades will be defined in some way by the capacity of the country to put demographic resilience at the center of this equation. Next. Because demographic resilience is an economic issue, it's a social issue, it's an environmental issue. And the time when demographic change was just an add-on, it's over. We cannot just put demography like some figure there in a plan because, yes, we need to put population there. I have a table of population by sex and age. That's it. No. Next. So conclusion and call for action. I think the time to harness this shift is now. So you select the title of the presentation right in the right moment. You couldn't be more exact in the moment you select for this, because we are now in the situation we have to plan for adapt, we need to mitigate. Both of them are needed. Next. How feasible do you think this is? How feasible do you think this is? Next. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Guzman, for your... In spite of all the technical challenges which occurred at the beginning, for which I think we rectified towards the end. The floor is now open for your questions, comments. If you wish to make a comment, there are ushers around the room who will be able to facilitate your questions. Please indicate your name and organization. We will also be taking questions from our online participants as well.
Hi, good morning. Hello. Okay, hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Monique Barrett. I'm from the PIOJ. Dr. Guzman, your lecture was deeply insightful and really provoked some interesting questions that I have about climate change and population aging and demography in Jamaica. Your lecture didn't specifically speak on this, but I just wanted to ask a question about climate migration and an inequality trap that might come up. So I was wondering if you could share your thoughts about climate-related internal migration in Jamaica. So, and the possibility of deepening risks as it comes to urban inequality. So in particular, having rural populations being displaced by damage to infrastructure, drought, or coastal erosion, and then having them relocate to already strained urban settings such as Kingston. I was wondering if we are really thinking enough about how climate adaptation policy could unintentionally reinforce class stratification.
Thank you very much for your question. I think this is very relevant, and I'm happy that you asked that question because it's like I make a presentation talking about geography and not including geography in my presentation. And I didn't do it. Well, do I have a justification for that? Not necessarily. But the point here is the following. It's very important that we consider what happened internally in the country. This is one of the, it's not just, when we talk about population size, even older people, it's not something that we can just say, we are not talking about that. It's not just about we have 1,000 people, 3 million people. It's about where they live too, where they are, what is the impact, what is the level of exposition they have because where they live. And what is the consequence of that? Obviously, in many countries with let's say more extended geographically, there is a lot of things happening with internal migration. Actually, in all the research has been, most of the research has been conducted on climate change and migration. The agreement is that climate change affects migration mainly at the national level. The impact at the international level, that some people were waiting for, like, to make like big, headlines in newspaper about climate change will move, I don't know, 500 million people. It's something that is being questioned in some way because most of migration occur internally. But one of the reasons, maybe, I didn't include too much about migration, internal migration, is because I was looking at the data, I was surprised looking at the data that the distribution of the population by parish in the last 30 years in Jamaica. And I was surprised that it has not changed too much. The percentage of population in each of the parishes has been basically the same. Yes, we have changed in Kingston area, but in the rest of the country, it seems that basically they have been keeping the old population growth rates. Yeah, they are different, but when you look in detail, they are not so much different. So the distribution you have by parish has not changed too much. But we don't know yet if, for example, the Melissa has had an impact. But this is a very important point, yes.
Thank you so much for that question and response. Other questions?
Yes.
Hello, good morning. That was a lovely presentation. My name is Terry King from the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development. Personally, working on the National Urban Renewal Policy, right? So demography is a very important part of what we do. I do have two questions for you, for your insight. So firstly, in your experience, to what extent does culture impact fertility? And are you aware of any culture-specific incentives that have been offered, and what are their impacts? And the second question is, to what extent has increasing the age at which families have children through methods such as accessible IVF played a part, if you're aware?
Repeat your question.
Okay.
The second one.
The second question? Okay. Okay. So, the second question, yes. To what extent is accessible IVF or...
Use the mic, please. Okay, thank you.
To what extent has the increasing age at which families have children, through methods such as accessible IVF, played a part in fertility globally? If there is. First question, are you aware of any cultural impacts that may have on fertility? Impacts that culture may have on fertility?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. I will start with the second one. Yes, this is something that many countries with very low fertility now are saying we can implement measures to increase fertility and make people more, create better conditions for people to take the decision to have kids. But in the meantime, there are a lot of women that want to have kids, but they cannot because of issue of infertility. Infertility related to them in the most of the cases, but also in their partners too. And many countries are investing a lot on that. And I think this is a right thing to do. I think we need to invest in improving the capacity, the possibility for women that want to have kids to have access to infertility treatment. But we need also to be aware that first the cost, who is going to pay for that? But second, we need to be aware that it's not just something in the UK. It's like contraception. You use it and it's effective, you won't have the kid. Your woman will not have a pregnancy. In the case of fertility treatment, it's not like that. The rate of success is not so high in many cases. And what the women suffer in this process is also something that needs to be considered. If the result is not positive, there are some side effects on mental health issue for women and for couples. So I think, yes, we need to invest on that. We need to make sure that women have the possibility, but we need to be aware of that. In the cultural factor, yes, the cultural factor, it depends what we define as cultural. With main religion, tradition, everything, this has been a factor, as I mentioned, more important in defining how things happen. What is the speed of the decline of fertility? In which moment the women has, do they marry or not? Do they have kids before marriage, as happening in Europe, that is now in many countries is the majority? Or we are talking about other issues. What happened with AI is culture, too. People are changing. What happened with social media is culture. the new culture that we are living today is the culture of communication that take most of the free time, even not always free, that a person has in their life. Many people are just, they are in the school, they are in their job, they are in the subway, they are in the bus, they are walking, they are talking, they are in a restaurant with a partner, and they are just texting and looking the last TikTok, Instagram post. So this is culture. This is the culture in which we live now, and that culture is taking a lot of influence on what's happening with fertility. So I think it's how you frame culture, but yes, this is important. Any other question, please? Yes, I know that.
Good morning. My name is Angela Patterson. I'm from the Caribbean community of retired persons. So our constituents are seniors. I was intrigued with your statement about the rate, the mortality rate not rising, that it has been holding steady at 71, 72. Is that just because of a lack of data? Because in our community, we're not seeing that. We have a lot of people who are 75, 80, 85. And so the question I'm really asking is, if it is that they are really, our rate of decline, deaths, whatever, is holding at that, how do we then explain the statistic that the level of elderly in the society is growing? I'm not getting that connection. Thank you.
Yes, I think you ask, do I know what is this trend is completely right? What I can tell you is that the people from the Population Division, UN in New York, they work with all countries of the world, and they are looking at this data very carefully. They are looking at all kinds of estimates, direct estimates, indirect estimates. As I mentioned, I even saw the graph that they have for Jamaica with all these things. Those are estimates, but those are estimates based on the best possibility that these estimates are true. That's why I mentioned that we need to have this estimate soon. But your question, yes, you can see that happening. We can imagine the two of them are not incompatible, because one reason, the number of older people does not depend only in the mortality they have. It depends on the fertility that happened 60, 70 years before. And happened that 50, 60 years ago, there was a higher fertility than we have now. So there were a cohort, very big cohort of people. Every cohort was bigger than the previous one. That means in 1960, there was a number of births. But in 1961, probably this number was higher. 1962, the number was higher. So we are now benefiting some way for this wave of high fertility of the past. And this number will increase, even if mortality stagnates, it increases. But also, it depends what sector you are talking. If you are talking a group of people that are like in the poorest group of the society, probably you will see that more than if you look at the middle class or dependent. But independently of that, it could be explained demographically. It's something that can happen, both things.
Okay, good morning, Dr. Guzman, and thank you very much for your lecture. It was really very interesting. In talking about mortality stagnation, one of the things you didn't talk about in a society like ours is crime. And I'm wondering whether, from the work you've done, you've seen any correlation between the levels of criminality or crime in a country and that country's overall population. Thanks.
Yes, of course. I have not studied in detail, I must confess. I don't have, go to the details of crime statistics in Jamaica. But what I know is that crime is part of a series of events that accumulate their influence on the stagnation. First, it was the economic crisis. Then it come the HIV and crime that increased. And then we are now adding NCDs, non-communicable disease, that also are taking a toll. So what we have is a superposition of social, economic, and in the case of criminality, a health issue that has been very negative for the country. So in this moment, if we think that, let's say, criminality can be more controlled and we continue successfully in decreasing that, the most important factor, I think, HIV is not anymore the big issue for mortality. So the main factor now is dealing with NCDs. But obviously, criminality is very important. But criminality has another impact that goes beyond mortality. In a society in which you have the level of criminality, when you think in having a kid, in some way there is the equation in your mind that you visualize the society in which this kid will live. What will be their exposition to risks? Should I live here? Should I have a kid here? Imagine in the extreme what happened with women in Ukraine now. How they can imagine having kids. Well, they have already a very low fertility, and this is part of the story of the conflict. But how you can imagine having kids in a society in which you don't know if they will go to school and he will be back. And let me tell you, this is also happening in the US in another way. When you have kids in US and you know that you don't know when you can hear or something, or somebody can message you that there was shooting in one of the schools. So this creates a level of uncertainty in the way you build your aspiration that affect not only fertility, but any decision that you can take in other areas. So the criminality, hopefully, you are on the right track, and this will be you are dealing with. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Guzman. Can we take the question in the center just before your question?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm Julian Devenish from the University of the West Indies. Thank you for a very insightful lecture. Yes, in addressing some of the social and demographic challenges to development, data has become really the new oil. Yet, in this context, there are so many things that we do not know. Today, we have a challenge where many persons have become very skeptical of providing data to organizations, and they're very sensitive about issues related to privacy of data, confidentiality of data. But we need this data to make data-driven policies. So what insights do you have for encouraging or creating, a kind of data-driven culture in Jamaica and the Caribbean? And secondly, is there any new data that we really need to be gathering to properly address the issues of population and climate resilience?
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a very important issue. And we want to do all this. We cannot do that without knowing what's happening. That's why I say we need to have information of life expectancy, mortality rates. We need to have information about fertility. The last estimate we have is 2019, I guess, from the survey. And we are 2026, I guess. And we don't know yet. It's 1.9, it's 1.8, it's 1.3. You can guess whatever you want. So how can we define now, act on a policy to know how urgent it is? Because if it's still 1.9, it's very different if it's now 1.4. Because it's 1.9, that means that, yes, we are in this situation, but let's see what happens. Let's move ahead and see this continue to be. It's kind of, we will be around 2.0, 2.05 or whatever, yes. But if we are in 2.4, 2.3, that means that fertility continue to decline. And then probably we will be in 2030 with a total fertility rate of 1.0. Chile is now 1.0. Less than most of European countries. So it's very important that to know, and for that, what we need to have a statistic on birth by age of the mother. So simple like that. But we cannot calculate rate unless we find the denominator. The denominator is the population, the women, by age. Do we have an estimate of the population of Jamaica 2026 by age? I used the estimate from UN, and UN is now revising. 2026, they will publish a new revision of the population projection. The last one was in 2024. Okay, and then, do we need the data? Yes. The problem with the data production, yes, we have an increasing problem in the census. We have a problem with the issue of people not wanting to receive in their houses. I think COVID has an impact also in that issue. People trying to protect, we stay in our houses, and then we didn't want somebody to come. So there is this kind of thing that was happening already, but now is increasing, particularly in some areas, more middle, high class, in the cities. We need to find a way to communicate better when we are going to collect data in such a way that we can improve this. This is very important. But the other way, we need to modify the whole system. But talking about the issue of confidentiality, many people are concerned. And I think this is a communicational issue. We need to transmit to people the issue of confidentiality. What confidentiality means for the Statistical Office of Jamaica, and what confidentiality means for Meta, for TikTok, for Instagram, for ChatGPT, because you know what? They know much more than the statistical. They know more than anyone. You can get anything about any person, not only how much age, race, income, yeah, you can get that, social security number, but also you can get the feelings of you can know what people are thinking, what are their concerns. So the confidentiality issue is not in the data you collect in the census, because the statistical office has been dealing with confidentiality since the beginning, and they take care, in general, very seriously this issue. And in the other side, confidentiality cannot be an excuse for not publishing results. Let me give you an example. Chile conducted census in 2024. Since 3 months ago, about 3 months ago, they put their microdata database of the census 2024 complete in the web. Anybody, you need to even ask for permission. You just go there and it gives you the option, download the full database of the census 2024. You can do it in a second. It depends on the speed of your connection, that's all. But many people, many countries are still dealing with our old-fashioned way to deal with confidentiality. And we cannot talk very nice about open data, which is a nice word, open data, open data. Open data means access to the data in details for researchers, for anybody interested in making change. And guess what? I don't know how many people have downloaded the database of the census. Not too many, probably, Chile. It's not that people are running looking for that. So I think it's very important, but this is a key factor for a statistical office of Jamaica and for any other country to have a clear policy that the role, the most important role a statistical office has is to collect data, good quality data, and distribute it as soon as possible, timely data. As census data from 2022, being available in 2030, Yeah, it's a good historical record, but it's not something that you can use to make decision now. Sorry.
No, thank you very much, Dr. Guzman, for the lecture. It's been very interesting. Aniceto Rodriguez Ruiz from the European Union. We have these three factors: natality, migration, and mortality. With natality, I'm very pessimistic because nobody found the magic stick, and in many countries in the world there is the same problem. They're having a lot of public policies on that, fiscal incentives, increasing paternity leaves, providing facilities, always failed. I mean, in Europe, in Canada, then I don't see what can be done on this side if people decide not having children. I mean, personally, I made my modest contribution. I have 4, but I think there where something can be done is in the movements of population, immigrations. Immigrations. There was one of the slides saying that 60% of graduates are out of the country, of Jamaican graduates are out of the country. Out of the 60%, how many are graduated in Jamaica or how many are graduated outside? Because there are also Jamaicans who graduate outside and they stay there. But for me, the most important is those who graduate here and live. And not only at university, at universitary level, but also at technical level. I mean, good plumbers, cooks, electricians, technicians, mechanicians, whatever. As soon as they become competent, they leave. I mean, retaining talent, this is something for what public policies can be envisaged much easily than for trying to get people having more children, because this is, I think, a lost battle everywhere in the world. What do you think about that, about this, what can be done to retain this talent, to make, because nobody likes leaving behind their friends, their family, what they are used to eat, their culture, their landscapes. Nobody likes that, I mean. Then you don't even need to offer the same conditions that they could have elsewhere. But something can be done, or something should be done on this sense. No?
Yes, thank you very much. I think your question, your comments are, I share basically what you said about difficulties, almost impossibility now to find something like the way we are going to solve this issue of very low fertility. I think we need to continue trying. But first, I think what has been done in most of I think in the last 15 years, particularly in Europe, last 20 years, because Europe started with what they call family policies many, many years ago. It's not something new. But lately, even in Europe, they are now not calling them anymore family policies. They want to really increase fertility. And they are very open on that. So I think it's $1 trillion question. I would like to find that, I think every day, every night, what could be done, how we can frame differently, what need to, you know. But obviously, many people working, trying to find that. I don't know, it's something we don't understand about how we evolve. There are researchers working, trying to look that for an evolutionary perspective. And, you know, it's how we have embedded the desire to have kids, like it's part of our evolutionary, part of our ADN or not. There is a researcher in Finland that she has done, you know, this research in this evolutionary thing, and she said, no, there is not an evolutionary need for have kids. They are evolutionary needs for sex, but not for have kids. Kid was the result of sex. And because with family planning now we separate both, there is not necessarily sex, is not necessarily conduct to pregnancy, to have a kids, to have children. So that's why it's different. But she said there is not a particular demand. There are other researchers that are looking more for the, as I say, more the psychological interpretation. It's like how can we imagine doing something for which you don't know what will be the result. Well, you will have a kid, but what does that mean? That, you know, it's not just having the baby and everybody celebrating and, oh, you know, it's a girl, oh, baby girl. Everybody is like happy, everybody celebrate. Our society still celebrate a lot babies. But then, in this same society, when the baby is 7 years old and is making crazy everybody in the room, they don't want to see kids. So this baby that was like, oh my goodness, becomes like the person. And that's why one of the problems we have in some countries, including Korea, is that Korea that is suffering the impact of very, very low fertility, lowest fertility in the world. There are places in which they don't want kids. They don't want kids around. And let me tell you something. I think there are also some influence from our role. I worked for UN for decades. So I think I know a little bit how UN work. And I think there are issues that we don't want to talk to. We don't talk to more. You get out of UNICEF, you don't see the word children very commonly in other agencies. You don't see the word family unless you are saying that we must accept different kind of family. Okay, got it. But the word, the things, that it's like we are afraid to talk about things that are important for our life. It's important, the kid, for some, not for everyone. There are people, and it's okay, it's fine. Different tastes, different, interests. But we need to talk more about what it means to be a children, to be a child, what happened with young people. We say we don't know those young people, that young generation, they are behaving away. I cannot understand what they think, what they are doing. Let's do it. Let's try. Let's work on them. Let's find on them the solution that we are trying to find. You know what has been one of the problems with most of the policy in Europe, in other countries? They have invested a lot on giving resources, money, to people that have already kids. You have 3 kids, you will receive this bonus. If you have 4 kids, your bonus will be grown. But what happens if you have 0 kids? Are you going to convince somebody that receive, let's say, even you say $500,000? If you have the 4 kids, you will have $400,000. Thank you. Okay, what happened with the third, and with the second, and the first? One of the most important determinants now in many European countries of the very low fertility is the childlessness. This was not an issue in Latin America. I remember studying fertility transition in Latin America, and you could describe the fertility trend by order of birth. They say order 1, mean the first child. Like this, decline, everywhere there was decline. But what happened now? What you have is the maternity. That was something like, nobody questioned maternity. Yes, you are a woman, you will have at least 1. It doesn't matter you have 1, 2, 3, or 4, but you need to be a mother. This cultural trait is over. You don't need to be a person, a good woman, a person successful for having a kid, for many people. So childlessness is now one of the most important persons, because when you decide not to have kids, it's like you have 100 people, you have 50 and 50 here. And both of them are possibilities for women having children. And you say, okay, I take this one out. Only these 50 are going to have kids. What does that mean? This is what's happening now. So when we are thinking in terms of policies, and this is why this is important, you are developing a policy for women that have children. They have already children. They have the motivation. They took the decision. Let's work with the ones that are not even starting a relationship. And talking about relationship, this is something also that is changing dramatically. There are many people in the world, increasingly in developed society, but even our society, that they don't have partner. They don't have sex when they are young, at the same level that it happened before. So the kind of what has created social media, lack of physical interaction between people, is also generating a society in which people find difficulties in finding partner. Then we invent Match.com and everything that you know after that. It worked for some time. It's not working anymore. Young people, they are not going there. How they interact? If every time they are dealing with the messages. So we need to look at our society. We cannot go back to think. We need to think we are going to talk culture. Let's talk about our current culture. Let's talk about social. Let's talk about our social interaction now. Let's talk about economy. Let's talk about our economy now. And by the way, what will happen with AI is going to destroy so many jobs as predicted by some people. We don't know. This is also have many influence in the labor market, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how people aspiration will be affected by thinking that they are going to start a career now, but to do what? To be unemployed at the end? So the level of uncertainty that this society is generating is so huge that this makes very difficult for people build any aspiration, particularly if those aspirations need some time to be implemented, and need some time to see the result, and need some time to look at the impacts in different ways. This is the crisis we have now is not just a crisis, demographic crisis, and the two that I said. But it's also an aspirational crisis created by a society that do not put the individual at the center. But then, if I continue talking like this, you will see, you said that you are a developer, but you are a pastor. I don't want to go there yet.
Dr. Guzman, there's a comment online that is in keeping with what you just discussed. So the person says, I too am not very optimistic about reversing the rate of infertility. So the discussion has to be mostly about retaining the talent and keeping the aged healthy, as they will continue to be a part of our future workforce in a meaningful way. And they close by saying, I see that in the business that they operate. So they're seeing those realities playing out as a small business owner.
I have some problem with the echo. Can you tell me more in terms of this?
They say that they are not very optimistic about reversing the rate of infertility.
Mm-hmm.
So the discussion has to be mostly about retaining talent and keeping the aged healthy, as they will continue to be a part of our future workforce.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you for the question. I think this is very important. Yes, I don't want to say you are right, but you are right. Yeah. But maybe with some difference. As I said, I'm more optimist. I don't think what we are living now should be forever. Because something that is interesting is that some people think that demographers, when we have the fertility transition, we say, oh, we are going to the level of replacement. And we all thought, not with a scientific view, but with kind of magical view. Oh, once we arrive 2.1, everybody will have 2 or 3 kids. This is natural. And then we live with this idea And now we are doing this, oh, what could happen? And we don't know yet, but now we are around 1.5, and some people say, after 1.5, this okay, we can manage that, which is not so true. But anyway, we are dealing with this. But I think and I was reading a research this morning, trying to also understand that issue, and I think, what is the error on that? What is the mistake we had, we as demographers? I remember, even until recently, the population division of UN project the population. It doesn't matter where the country was in terms of fertility at the moment they made the projection, but always 2050 at that time, and now 2100 was 2.1. So there was this implicit idea that this kind of 2.1 was a magical number that every woman in the universe knew. And we have to go to 2.1. Don't worry. The demographers said that. We will follow demographers. But what is the mistake on that interpretation? The mistake is that we think that the society move from equilibrium state to another equilibrium state, to another equilibrium state. And we just imagine that we move from the decline of fertility for high fertility in Dominican Republic, the country I come from. Fertility in the 65 was 7.5 children per woman, 7.5, national data, okay? And then we saw this decline, 2.3 or whatever. And then, we now go to the new equilibrium state. Wrong. I was wrong too. I'm a demographer. I'm still are. I think I'm still are. And then what happened with this? Let's apply that now. Some people think that we can move to a new state now. Or we can move back to the 2.1, which is the right value. Obviously, it's the 2.05 actually is the replacement level. It depends on the country, it depends on many things, but, well, not many things. It depends on sex ratio, it depends on mortality. But then, we are not sure on that. So maybe what we have to do is deconstruct our conceptual framework of this equilibrium thing. Because if you look at our society, we are always moving. Our goal is to get an equilibrium, always, because we need to leave something that are fixed. We need to know that you get out and this door will open. You need to know that there is the driver will be there to transform me to the hotel. We need certainties. So because we need certainty in our life to live, we think that, it's just a matter of transition. We will transition to something stable. But life, by definition, is the fight of humans to deal with constant, permanent instability.
Thank you.
And if we forget that, we forgot the basic foundation for we understand what's happening now. If we think that we will move to another stability, I don't know what will happen. I don't know what kind of stability we may have. But I think that what is important is we open our thinking and being even positive, but not being naive in terms of what could happen. I personally, if you ask me personally, I think that population decline, contrary of people that I read, I think this is a very important issue. The country needs to deal with that. It's not just a matter of numbers. It's not just a matter that you have Jamaica have this population. It's a matter of what happened at the local level. What happened with the built environment? What happened with the schools? What happened with the profession? You know how difficult it is to provide services to a community in which you see a small town disappearing. This is what I was in Bulgaria recently, and they have a serious problem. They are trying to imagine how we are going to provide services, health services, and they are using a lot of telehealth, things like, but there are people still there in Bulgaria, they don't have connection to internet. So I think it's, this is for me the most fascinating issue in this moment. I would like to bring you to there and to think that we are all at the same level. We know exactly the same. And what we know is that we don't know yet. So let's work together and let's put in the hand of the new generation of demographers, the new generation of sociologists, the economists, the environmentalists,
Dr.
that
Guzman?
people in the planning, in the economy, to deal together with this, because this is what will define our future and is already defining our present.
Dr. Guzman, we have a final question for you from a member of our audience who has been waiting so patiently.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for your very insightful lecture. I'm Nicole Scott from the Michael University College. Now, childlessness is a challenge, and retaining talent is also a challenge. You mentioned reversing brain drain as a strategy for mitigating population decline. And brain drain reversal has been done elsewhere. So Chinese students were encouraged to study abroad in the United States, in Europe, and other advanced economies. And they gained experience in technology and finance and manufacturing and academia and entrepreneurship. Then they returned. So my question to you is, what would be your suggestions for structured pathways for Jamaicans to return? What would be your suggestions for structured pathways for Jamaicans to return to address the population decline?
I think that to answer your question, I need to ask the director of PIOJ to see if he's have the money to hire me for 3 years to answer your question. Yes, I think this is the challenge. What you are saying is the right challenge. I think there is not one pathway, and I think this is good news. I don't think it's just a matter to do this or that. I think we need to do everything we need to do to improve the quality of life of people, no matter what. Because in the worst case scenario, this will not rise fertility, but it will improve the way people live their lives with safety, healthy, and in better condition. And I think this, we cannot forget that. Independently of our concern, our work in trying to reverse the trends, we cannot forget, at the end, people that were born, they live here, they are live here, they are demanding, they want safety, they want the possibility to build in their mind the future they would like to build. They want to have the possibility to implement their decision every day. They want to study what they want. They want to really use their knowledge to make changes in their society, to increase their income, to build families. Or not, maybe to stay alone. But this is important, that we never surrender, that at the end, what matters is how we protect, how we help, how we empower people that are now living in the country. This is first. Because by the way, one of the ways, I have a question about migration I didn't answer. Now I realize that I should answer that question about migration. At the end, one of the important reasons for people to leave the country, yes, we know pull factors are important. United States, UK, they have more, whatever. You know, but there are also push factors. In the Caribbean, there are a lot of push factors for people. I was working with Montserrat, 5,000 people. They had 12,000 before the volcano. And I was surprised because they said, I cannot believe we have an island with 5,000 people, and we are talking about the same thing we are talking about a country with Jamaica, or the same thing we are talking about a country as Italy or Spain. How is that possible? And I think that, and in the case of Montserrat, was exactly the same factor, push factor. the young people, they don't know what to do there. You know, what you can do in Montserrat when you have only one place that have 3 restaurants close to facing the beach. And they have a small country cut by 2/3 because of the volcano. You cannot use that area for anything, even agriculture. And they have to live in 1/3 of the island that is already a small island. And what is? They have one day. Sorry, they have one day in Montserrat that they enjoy, the young people. They should be enjoying St. Patrick's Day. Montserrat was a place, the capital, Montserrat, was a place with everyone every year go there, from Anguilla, from many islands of the Caribbean. I don't know if Jamaica is more far away, but even there, I asked two young people that I discussed with them in my visit, and they say no. I say, oh, you are going to enjoy St. Patrick. He said, enjoy. We are going to work. This is the opportunity we have to get some money. There are so many people coming to celebrate. They stay here 2, 3 days, 4 days. They drink, they celebrate, they do anything. They go to the beach. Money. So what I think is that when we think in terms of migration, we need to think in terms of young people, possibilities, opportunities, and how coming back to aspiration. What their aspiration? And the aspiration don't match with the reality, they find a way to live.
Thank you so much, Dr. Guzman. I think that's a good note to end on, both the question and the response. Thank you so much for your lecture.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you so much to the audience for your engaging questions, which explored so many different areas. So thank you so much, Dr. Guzman. Thank you. All right, so we will now move into an interactive segment, and I'm going to ask all of you to use your programs, scan the QR code that's on your program, because now we want to ensure that we're being participatory in the spirit of the dialogue, evidence-driven, and so we'd like your real-time engagement with all the persons except staff members of the PIOJ. We want to participate. I'm sorry, colleagues, those were my instructions. So we are going to be displaying, we'll be displaying the leaderboard once persons start to respond to the questions. And the top 10 participants will be awarded prizes. DG, put your phone down, thank you. We will also, in this segment, be having our evaluation exercise. So once you are completed once you have completed this activity, we will move to the evaluation. Another QR code will be displayed, and if there are persons who prefer to do the traditional paper-based evaluation, we will have some of those forms as well available. Have persons gotten on? Oh yes, I'm seeing that people are playing already. So we're giving a few moments for you to participate. Yes, a question. I'm not hearing. Gwyneth, Kim, they're saying there's nothing coming up. Oh, we're giving time for persons to log on. Two more seconds, 3 more. I'm seeing some PIOJ colleagues. Is it that you guys did not follow my instructions? At Neil Braham, why am I seeing your name? Thanks, Tashna. That's such a diplomatic response. Are we going to start now? Gwyneth? Kim? We're starting? Kovali? All right, here we go. And know that the quicker you respond, you'll be further up on the leaderboard. I think that one is fairly easy. What are the 3 pillars of sustainable development? Excellent. I see most people getting the responses correct. Drea is in the lead. Who is Drea? Yes. Say that again. Tamara, I see it challenging. You need to move a little faster. We heard the replacement rate discussed so many times this morning. Do we know what the replacement level fertility rate is? Tamar. Drea, I can't believe you gave up the lead. Question 4 of 5. What are the issues driving population aging? The longest streak. Tamara may have to consider moving it from JPC to the PIOJ. How would we describe Jamaica's population? Final question. Well done. Marie. Where is Marie? Well, listen, I'm claiming you as PIOJ alumni. Thank you everyone for your participation. As I indicated, the top 10 persons will be awarded prizes. Top 10? Yes, of course. And so I'm asking Mareeca, I invite Mrs. Patrine Cole. We're waiting. Okay, so the top 10 persons. So I can't see the, okay, Marie Ann Smith, I invite you to join us. Andre. Andre used to work at the Planning Institute of Jamaica as well. Tamar in 3rd place, please join us. Who is D? Okay, Deidre. It's Deidre. And she was, in her words, doing quality control. Who is number 5? So we'll take 11 then, up to 11, since we're disqualifying Deidre. Thank you so much for ensuring that the game worked. Who are the others? Okay. Thank you so much, Deidre. So, Drea, who is Drea? I'm telling you. Alex, who is Alex? Come on up, Alex. Keone, is that a PI? Okay, Keon, okay. Camille Evans. Tariq. Come on up, Tariq. Glecia, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Stuart. And finally, Charlene. So that rounds out our top 10. Thanks, Deidre. And Deidre, in fact, did do quality control. So thank you, Deidre. As the participants come to collect their prizes, I'm going to ask that we display the QR code for the evaluation. So we're also asking everyone to please let us know how you thought the event was. So we will be displaying the QR code. Please let us know. If you prefer to write your answers, you can indicate to our ushers and they will hand the evaluation forms to you. So I now invite, you want? So as a token of our appreciation to our guest lecturer, Dr. Guzman, who is engaging in deep discussions with Dr. Henry, I'm inviting you, Dr. Guzman, to come to the stage, and I invite Miss Ashley Codner to present a token to you. Go to the center for you. It's for you.
Dr. Guzman, thank you so much for delivering an excellent, distinguished lecture. I think I speak for the room when I say that it was very engaging. We have learned some interesting you've given us some interesting perspectives to think about and to incorporate into our work as we think of harnessing the shift and building a sustainable future. Thank you so much.
This is beyond any expectation that I may have before I come here. I knew that you, Jamaican people, you are special. I knew that, but I didn't know that it was so special. Thank you very much.
He says if he arrives late tomorrow, we know why. The contents of the basket had something to do with it. Thank you so much, Ashley. I now invite Mrs. Marcia Blake Hall, who is the Principal Director for Corporate Marketing and Communication at the Planning Institute of Jamaica, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. They say all good things come to an end. I'm honored to stand here on behalf of the Planning Institute of Jamaica to convey heartfelt gratitude to everyone who participated in today's event. A huge thank you to our guest lecturer for sharing his knowledge on this topic, which is quite topical, in such an engaging and relatable way. Your words sparked new thoughts and gave us fresh perspectives on the subject, and as you coined it, perfect storm for demographic decline. Special thanks to the Dialogue Planning Committee, supported by the staff of the PIOJ, for their commitment in organizing this year's lecture. We are also grateful that you always make sure that we get opportunities to learn beyond textbooks, and we truly appreciate that. Thanks to the technical and support teams for the smooth coordination, and to all who joined in, listened attentively, and asked such thoughtful questions. We must applaud the administrative team who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, and I might add, we started planning from early last year, interrupted by Melissa, but we continued. So to that team that secured the venue, invited guests, arranged refreshments, and ensuring that everything runs smoothly, we are truly grateful. To the audience, your presence here is a testament to your commitment to joining us in improving the lives of our fellow Jamaicans and moving the country forward in a more resilient and sustainable way, so that we can make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business, and retire in peace. We close this chapter with gratitude. Thanks for being a part of it. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Blake Hall. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to remain for refreshments and to view the exhibition. Let today not be the end of the dialogue, but the beginning of deeper policy reflection and coordinated action as we harness the shift and reimagine a sustainable future for Jamaica. Thank you.
Planning today, securing tomorrow. The PIOJ story.
The Institute's mission is to lead the process of